If somebody had told me 3 years ago that I would be living a life steroid-free, I simply wouldn't have believed them. It's incredible how far I've come with my skin journey. And in this video, I really want to sit down and have a bit of a heart-to-heart and open discussion about my journey, especially for those of you who are new to my channel, who would really like to perhaps get some inside information as to how I healed and my journey. I have done some previous videos in the past about this, but it's been a really long time since I've given you an update of my skin, as it's coming up to almost 3 years being completely topical steroid free. What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Layla, and for those of you who don't know me, my channel is dedicated and geared towards those of you who are struggling with eczema, TSW, any other skin inflammatory condition that you might be struggling with. This is the channel to be watching. My whole ethos is all about healing your skin condition, be it lifelong or short term, through your gut by eliminating various different types of foods, including the good, so that we can be on the right path to healing our skin completely naturally from the inside out. So life today has really drastically changed since going through my TSW, and particularly my life before TSW. I was very much reliant on steroid creams. I always had them in my vanity cabinets, and I never went anywhere without them, be it a 1% steroid or something strong. At the time, I never really thought anything of it, that anything was wrong with having this little tiny tube of cream in my toiletry bag at all times, in case I had a little bit of redness, little dry skin, or a little bit of a flare somewhere. I would apply this cream and whoop, vanish, it would go, just like a magic potion. However, as many of us know, over the course of time, my skin became more and more reliant on this cream, and then I eventually went into TSW full blown. Now, it took me 2 attempts to overcome my topical steroid withdrawal, and the first time round was basically because I was doing it completely solo, quite blindly. I was trying to follow various different eczema fad diets all the time, different types of potions and creams and lotions that I would make at home, and then I was also trying a lot of different sort of holistic approaches at the same time, but not really pinpointing and committing to one particular strategy. And finally, when it came to about 8 months of getting nowhere with my healing, I decided to go back onto steroids because I literally could not bear it. I was raising a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at the time completely alone, and in the summer of 2019, I literally spent the majority of that summer in the bath crying because my skin was so painful and it was so excruciating, and I was so utterly depressed that I couldn't look after my children very well, that I stuck them in front of iPads for the majority of the day just so that I could get some relief in the bath. And this was my life, and I couldn't do it any longer, so I decided to go back onto steroids and then have a little break and plan out my next move. Now, this is something I really want to discuss with you guys because I feel there's a lot of you out there on different social media groups and communities discussing whether to go back onto topical steroids or not, and feeling that you've come to a headway with your suffering, to be honest, because it is suffering with TSW, that really you have to make that decision that if you need to look after children, if you need to go back to work because you have income issues, if you have these desperate needs, that in my personal opinion, there's nothing wrong with going back on those topical steroids to have that temporary relief, whereby you can then regroup your thoughts and your strategy as to how you're going to go through withdrawal the next time. And I know many of you out there might even unsubscribe, unfollow me or what have you, saying that, you know, steroids are the devil. And I completely agree that steroids are not the way to treat your inflammation. It's certainly not the way to treat your long-term eczema, or even using steroids to overcome these flares is not the long-term solution. We need to get to the root cause, and I'm totally in agreement with you. But for those of you who are suffering extremely badly, and at the same time you have enormous amounts of PTSD, you know, post-traumatic stress from this experience of going through TSW, and you cannot cope anymore, then certainly going back onto steroids is acceptable acceptable to do. Everybody has their own path to healing and how they do it. And on my channel, I try to support you guys as best as possible, giving you lots of insights and tips and tricks as to how you can actually navigate your healing as best as possible, especially if you want to do it completely naturally, as I have done. Then the second time round, on the 1st of January 2020, I quit steroids for life, and I'll be coming up to my 3-year mark by the end of this year, completely steroid free. And within that time, I did manage to heal my skin within 3 months because I applied a strategy, and I talk about my strategy in many of my videos as to what I did. In fact, the complete guide to healing my TSW, it's in that video. It's pretty much my A to Z as to what I did. But I integrated this life change, and this is what really gave me those stepping stones to clearing my skin, clearing the redness, the flaking, the oozing, the constant itch scratch cycle that I would have morning, noon, and especially night. I was able to sleep through the night, and I could feel that I had really turned a page with my skin. And as I was so pleased with the outcome as to what I had done, I really knew that if I could stick to a certain lifestyle, because I think ultimately when it comes to removing this inflammation from our body is all true and well, but if we're not actually changing our habitual daily habits, then we are not really going to change as an individual. And I feel this is really important. It's not just the diet, it's also integrating a lot of personal development. And these are the types of things that we need to do to grow as a person, to develop and to overcome that TSW. We need to only implement the changes of our healing, but also implement that maintenance so that we don't fall into that inflammation trap again in the future. So then I sought out a homeopath and holistic practitioner, Julia Edgley. Once again, I'll put her in the link below. I've done a whole playlist of videos with her answering so many in-depth questions. I felt seeking out a holistic practitioner was ideal for me because I had somebody that I could just check in with every single month and go and visit. And some months, I hadn't done that much in terms of my healing, but I felt like I was on track with what I was doing, and I felt motivated and I felt inspired to keep going, even though I wasn't seeing very many results, especially in the early few weeks of my healing journey. She really explained to me how the body wants to heal itself, how the body is always trying to protect itself from inflammation, and how we just need to give our body the support it needs so that it can fight any of these diseases, any of these drug addictions that we might have in our body. Whatever it may be, our body wants to be healthy, and we just need to give it the right tools in order to do that. So this is why it came down to the diet. By removing the steroids and overcoming that steroid addiction, it really started to make sense that in order to help the body do what it wants to do, we've got to give it the right fuel, we've got to nourish it in the right way so that we can allow our bodies to take control and heal itself. And this is kind of like the ethos of everything that I preach about of my channel, is healing through the gut and giving the body what it needs in order to heal itself. I found that my skin healed quite quickly in the 3 months, but I still had a lot of side effects of the steroids, including very poor adrenals, very poor cortisol levels. I am in my mid-40s, so I think, in my opinion, it's more of a struggle for older women to go through TSW on that side of the spectrum in terms of anxiety and depression and your energy levels. I feel like those things are a lot more challenging to overcome when it comes to healing TSW. And I have to say, I still struggle a little bit with anxiety now and again. It is something that, I do try to work on nowadays and be a lot more mindful about. But I think when it comes to doing the mindset and the mental work, that does take a fair bit longer. I have to say my adrenals did not really come into check until probably about early last year. Yeah, a good year and a half. It's a fair length of time for my adrenals to have balanced itself. So starting small on small levels and small steps I really advise that as the way forward, and just to focus always on giving yourself that nourishment, that giving yourself that self-love that you need. That is probably the best way to move forward with your healing journey. So since I've become steroid free, my skin as a whole is so much better. I do peak and trough with my diet. You know, I did take a bit of time off and I allowed myself this summer to eat pretty much whatever I wanted. I didn't flare. Main times that I actually do flare is when my immunity is under threat or is coping with something, and that is to say that if I get a cold or flu or COVID, I tend to have a breakout, and it's more to do with my body fighting that inflammation once again internally, and then all of this sort of goes to shit. But it's very temporary, and it is something that I really want to talk about actually on my channel in future videos, is immunity and keeping that immunity in check, especially with the winter months ahead, because obviously it's cold and flu season, it's all coming about. So for me, it's really important to try and keep my immunity in check, because I would have to say in the last year I've been getting a cold or a flu or COVID or whatever it might be every 3 to 4 months, which is way too much, you know, because not that I've been on any huge amounts of antibiotics or any drugs or anything, but I have had, you know, a 3-day cold here and there, and then I've had a 1-week cold here and there, and then I've had COVID for a couple of weeks, you know, and all of that really messes with my skin. It sets me back to zero. It is something that I want to do more research in, and I know it has a lot to do with fermented foods, which is something that I have been kind of avoiding over the last few months, because I know fermented foods are very high in histamine, and then that can maybe confuse you guys as to, you know, whether or not we should be eating them or not, because obviously they're high in histamine, they can cause an itch release, but at the same time they can actually help protect our immunity. So, and when it comes to healing TSW, we need to also be very conscious of our immunity and our immune response. So that is it for me, you guys. I really hope you got something out of this video, and if you did, don't forget to give me a big thumbs up if you got some good value out of it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, join my community. Let me know down below in the comments how you are getting on with your steroid-free life, and how long you have been healing your TSW, and what are your biggest challenges to healing your skin. Until then, I'll see you over here in this video about how you can manage your adrenal fatigue if you are struggling with it. And until then, you guys, I'll see you next week with another one. Bye for now.